Hello and welcome to a brand new video. I'm Joe if you're new around here, and today I'm going to take you on a journey through the history of my Snooker 19 career mode story. Really looking forward to getting into it. Thank you for all of the support on the first 3 seasons. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you to all the members, thank you to the patrons, and thank you to all the donations. Just a quick thing before we get into today's video. At the time of recording, 31st of May 2020, when this video comes out, you have got one final day if you are a YouTube Premium subscriber to become a member of my channel for the month of June for free. Not a penny, no pennies spent, no expense there, and you get all of the rewards, and you really help me out and the Two Phase project. So if you could do it, if you are a YouTube Premium member and you're not already a member of another channel for free, please consider clicking that join button down below and just using it up. You might as well, and it'll really help me out, and you won't it won't cost anything basically. So yeah, the history of the save then. So over the last few weeks I've put together a big spreadsheet, and well, here it is today, ready for you guys to have a look at. And I'm actually going to bring my ugly mug onto it, I think. There we go. So you can see me at the bottom. I want to actually make this as big as I can, so I'm just going to do that and sort of move it along a little bit, just so you guys can see the amount of detail that is in this. Now, Season 4 will start tomorrow. Now, it's crazy what I've done. Obviously, not everyone in the world will have done this, because they won't have documented their series on YouTube, so it was quite easy for me to actually go back and check all of the results. So let's go back to Season 1. The game came out on April the 17th, 2019. I don't think I was allowed to show career mode until that day, but I was allowed to show some gameplay before that. But the very first match that we played on YouTube was Daniel Wells in the last 64 of the Riga Masters. So we beat Daniel Wells 4 frames to 2. And you can see that was the same scoreline for the following match against Martin Gould. So you can see some of the viewing figures up here if you're curious about it. Absolutely insane, the amount of views up there. But yeah, then we had the brand new patch that came in a couple of days into release, where the AI started playing safety shots. Obviously, before they would just roll up to the balls every single shot, that they couldn't pot anything. So from that update, they started playing safety shots. So I actually had recorded the rest of the Riga Masters and basically decided to scrap those episodes. They're unlisted. They're left, pardon me, in the description of episode 4, 5, something like that. So there's 5 unseen, unlisted episodes that you can see me beat Jack Lazowski 4-2, David Gilbert 4-2, and Mark Selby we lost 5-2 in the semi-finals. We then move on to the Paul Hunter Classic, because we skipped the Yusham World Open. But keep in mind, Mark Selby won the Riga Masters, he won the Yusham World Open, and then we played in the Paul Hunter Classic. We beat James Watner, Liam Highfield, Mark Davis and Jack Lazowski on the way to the quarterfinals, and we lost to world number 1 Mark Selby 4-1. And once again, Mark Selby went on to win the Paul Hunter Classic. So in our first 2 tournaments, we got to a semi-final and a quarterfinal, so it wasn't too bad a start for us actually in the save. And I might actually take my face off just so you can see the full extent of the spreadsheet. So then we move on to the 6 Reds. Got through the group stage fairly comfortably, but then played Stu Bingham, and I remember distinctly we were about 5-1 down in this match, and we got it back to 5-4, and then Stu Bingham got over the line, so we went out 6-4 Stu Bingham in the last 16. Kyron Wilson went on to win that tournament in the end, which is very, very interesting. Mark Selby then went on to win the Shanghai Masters. We got knocked out in the semi-final. Now, there used to be a glitch where the final was a best of one frame. So, yeah, we lost 1-0 to Mark Selby after beating Lazowski and Williams on the way to that semi-final. So, again, we still didn't get our first bit of silverware. We didn't enter the China Championship. Mark Williams won that. We didn't enter the Indian Open. Judd Trump won that one. Into the European Masters then, and this is where the saves started to change. We beat Ken Doherty 4-0. We then beat Anthony McGill 4-0 and got our first 1-4-7 in that match. And then we beat Barry Hawkins 4-1, Mark Allen 4-2, and Mark Williams in a deciding frame 6-5. And then we beat Mark Selby 9-7. We were 7-2 down in that match and came back to beat him 9-7 to win our first ranking tournament against Selby. It was a sweet feeling, and that was the real turning point of season 1 of our career. We then went on to win the English Open by beating John Higgins in the final. We beat McGill again on the way. Kyron Wilson, we beat Neil Robertson, Judd Trump, and then Higgins in a deciding frame 9-8. We beat John Higgins. It was a fabulous match, and we won our second tournament in a row, our second ranking tournament as well. We then didn't enter the International Championship. I'm not really sure why. I think I was eager to get on to the Champion of Champions, so we didn't enter the International Championship. Mark Selby won that in the end. We then went into the Champion of Champions and beat Stu Bingham in the first round 4-0. We beat Mark Allen, Kyron Wilson in the semi-final before defeating Mark Williams 10-2 in that final. It was probably the best spell I've ever had in the career mode so far, was these 3 tournaments. We played superbly throughout those tournaments, and eventually people were starting to call for us to change the difficulty already, which wasn't possible. We couldn't change the difficulty at this point mid-career mode, and people will say, oh, you need to start this again, it's too easy, blah blah blah. And then we get into the Northern Ireland Open. So same as usual, we beat Ken Doherty 4-0, then Tom Ford 4-3. Nearly went out to Tom Ford. We had to pull out 2 fantastic breaks in the final 2 frames to come through against Tom Ford. But then we went down 4-3 to Mark Allen in the last 16 of the Northern Ireland Open. And this is where season 1 started to unravel. We'd had that wonderful run of form. We'd won, how many matches is that? 6, 11, 15... 17 matches in a row we'd won, and then we lost against Mark Allen. We then went into the UK Championship, first Triple Crown event of our career mode. We beat Hamid Mir 6-0. We beat Andrew Higginson 6-1. Zhao Guodong, we beat him 6-1 as well. We then went on to lose 6-3 to Barry Hawkins, and once again it was a last 16 exit from the first Triple Crown event, and I was gutted at this point. We'd won 3 tournaments, but I feel like a failure at this point. We lost in the last 16 in the Northern Ireland. We lost in the last 16 in the Betway UK Championship. We then didn't enter the Scottish Open, and we went out in the last 16 of the Dafabet Masters in the first season. By the way, John Higgins won the Northern Ireland Open, and Mark Selby won the UK Championship. Mark Williams won the Scottish Open, and Ding Junhui won the Masters. That was a strange one for me. We're looking back at this, because Ding has really not featured too much in the career mode. But Sean Murphy beat us 6-5 in that match. That was another painful one in the grand scheme of things. We then lost in the last 16 of the Coral World Grand Prix versus Judd Trump. He beat us 4-2. We'd beaten Captain Ali Carter 4-0 in the last 32 of that one. John Higgins going on to win the Coral World Grand Prix. And all of a sudden, we had another turning point. We won the Welsh Open, beating Liam Highfield, Lou Haishan, Stu Bingham, Mark Williams 5-0 with 2 1-4-7s in a row in that match. This was truly our peak performance, I think, at this point. We beat Mark Selby, and then Kyron Wilson, a surprise finalist. We beat him 9 frames to 6 in that final there. We then played in the shootout, last 32. We played Jimmy Robertson, beat him 1-0, and we beat Ding Junhui 1-0, and then lost to Jack Lazowski in the quarterfinals. Kyron Wilson actually went on to win his first ranking event of the season. He'd won the Shanghai Masters previously. We then look on at the Coral Championship, or Players Championship, and we won in the last 16 against Judd Trump 4-2. We then beat Stuart Bingham 4-0 in the quarterfinal before beating Mark Selby and Mark Allen again. So this was now 2 proper ranking events in a row that we'd won. And then we went on to the Coral Tour Championship. We beat John Higgins 5-0. Again, this is such a sweet spot of our form. We beat Mark Allen in the semi-final 6-4 and beat Mark Williams 9-5. So that was our 6th tournament victory of the season, our 5th ranking event. Obviously, we'd won the Champion of Champions as well, but 6 tournaments won that season. And we didn't enter the China Open, wanted to get straight into the World Championship. And you can see Mark Selby won the China Open. But then the World Championship in Season 1 came along. We were 5-2 up against Yan Bingtao. He won the final 2 frames of the first session to be only 5-4 behind going into the second session. We then unravelled, and we only won 3 further frames as Yan Bingtao pulled off one of the biggest shocks of this career mode so far, and he beat us 10 frames to 8 in that first round of the Betfred World Championship. I cannot tell you how gutting that was. And it was such a parallel to real life, actually, because Ronnie O'Sullivan went out to James Cahill 10-8, and it just, you know, he'd won the Players' Championship, he'd won the Tour Championship. It was crazy how much of a parallel there was between us two back then. I was planning it all out. I thought, I'll have 16 episodes and I'll win the tournament in the 100th episode, and it'll be fantastic. It's all meant to be. But we went out. We got 3 centuries in that match, and we went out 10 frames to 8. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment in the end. We didn't do well in the World Championship. It was our earliest exit from any tournament so far in the last 32, and it was completely gutting, to say the least. So we went out 10 frames to 8. Mark Williams went on to defend his World Championship, and that's why he had such a dominant reign in that top 2 for so long in this career mode. But if we have a look at Season 1 in general, this was the spreadsheet I'd sort of carried out at the time. You can see the number of centuries. I sort of tried to keep record as much as possible in this, and we made 58 centuries in Season 1, high break of 147. We got 142 in that match against Yan Bingtao, so we were playing well, but Bingtao in the end played better, and you can see those 6 victories there. A lot of them were in a row. We got to at least the last 16 of most of the tournaments, and it was just that last one at the end, the last 32 of the World Championship, the one that matters, and I was completely gutted at the end of that. So let's move into Season 2 then. So you can see the story of Season 1, and now if we move into Season 2 then, don't want to spoil too much, but we started the season by not entering the Riga Masters. Mark Williams won that one. Mark Selby, beat or won the Yushan World Open. We didn't enter that. We then did enter the Paul Hunter Classic. We beat Kishan Irani 4-2 in the last 1-8, but then lost in the last 64 against Liam Highfield. I mean, what an unexpected result. And at this point, we'd lost in the final in the last 32 of the World Championship. We moved up to Pro Plus, by the way, for Season 2, because a new patch came out where you could change the difficulty on the fly. So Liam Highfield beat us 4-2 in that match. And again, Mark Williams went on to win that tournament. We then had the 6 Red World Championship. It didn't enter it in Season 2. Mark Williams won that. Then we lost in the last 16 of the Shanghai Masters to Luca Brissell in a deciding frame, 6-5. So at this point, we lost 3 of our last 4 matches. Mark Selby went on to win that tournament. We didn't enter the China Championship. Judd Trump was victorious in that one. We didn't enter the Indian Open. Mark Williams won that one. And then we went into the European Masters as defending champion. Surely this is where our form would change. So you can see at last 64, we beat Alexander Erzenbach at 2 frames to 1. We then beat Zhao Guodong at 4-1 in the last 32 before going out to Stephen Maguire, the Maverick. The first time we've played him in the series, and we lost 4-1 to him in the last 16. John Higgins went on to win that tournament in the end. And yeah, completely gutted. Into the English Open then, defending champion again. It looked like we could do something, but again, we went out early after beating Luke Simmons, Fergal O'Brien and Mark Davis, in a deciding frame to Mark Davis, so that sort of shows our form at the moment. And then we lost to winner chicken dinner, Stuart Bingham, 4-2 in the last 16. We then went on to the International Championship. We beat Jamie Clark 4-2 in the last 128. We beat Chris Wakeland 2-1 in the last 64. We then won in the last 32 against Yan Bingtao. Got revenge. That was episode 100 of the series. We beat him 2-0. We then beat Joe Perry 6-3 in the last 16. That was a shock to play Joe Perry that late in the tournament, the way Snooker 19 works. And then we went out to Mark Williams 6-4. It was one of the best matches that I'd played up to that point, and Mark Williams was just better, and he went on to win the tournament there. By the way, Mark Selby won the English Open. Into the Champion of Champions again, defending champion. We beat Stuart Bingham 4-3. Went 3-0 up within a flash. Stuart Bingham was all at sea. He forced a decider, came back to 3-all, and we came through the decider there. But John Higgins, best form that I've ever seen from the AI, I think, in that match. He was just scoring 50 plus every single time he was getting in, and beat us 6-0 in that quarterfinal. And this was a real low point for me in the series. Just couldn't get a start in any of the tournaments. And then we go to the UK Championship. We beat Fan Zhengji 2-0 in the last 64. Last 128. We beat Rory McLeod 2-0 in the last 64. We beat Martin Gould 2-0 in the last 32. And then we lose in the last 16 again to Neil Robertson 4-2. And we're 23 episodes into this season. And we're already out of the UK Championship. Put that back to last year. 56 was the episode number that we got knocked out of the UK Championship. So you can see how much quicker we're getting knocked out of tournaments, and it's just demoralising. And that's what Snooker 19 can do to you. You get into a bit of a rut, and just like real life, it's very difficult to get out of that rut. But Mark Selby, again, winning the Northern Ireland Open there. Sorry, that was the Northern Ireland Open, not the UK Championship, but probably similar is going to happen. Put it that way. There you go. We got knocked out of the last 16 against Mark Williams 6-3. He beat us there. And yeah, episode 27, 56. It's still less than halfway. We beat Joe Perry in the last 32, 6 frames to 2. John Higgins actually defended his UK Championship title. Did he win it season 1? Let's have a little look. Did John Higgins win the UK Championship season 1? No, he didn't. Mark Selby did. And John Higgins came out on top there. So, yeah, there we are. So, again, halfway point of the season. We didn't enter the Scottish Open again, which is a weird one. I don't really know why I didn't. But Mark Williams defended his title. We then went into the Dafabet Masters in need of a big result, and boy did we get it. We beat Ding Junhui 6-5 in the first round. We then beat Mark Williams 6-2 in the quarterfinal. We beat Mark Selby 6-4 in the semis, and then defeated Mark Allen 10 frames to 8 in the final to win our first tournament of the season, our first Triple Crown title on Pro Plus. And yeah, I was just relieved to win that Masters title because the season had gone so wrong up to that point. But we won the Masters, and that seen a bit of an upturn in form. We then went into the German Masters, and we lost in the last 16 to Ding Junhui. It was a very good performance from Ding there. Mark Williams going on to win that tournament. We then have the Coral World Grand Prix, beat Jimmy Robertson and Stuart Bingham to get to the quarterfinals, where we were defeated once again by Luca Bracel, his second victory over us in this season so far. Judd Trump went on to win that tournament. We then went into the the Welsh Open. Jamie Clark, Mark Joyce, Mark King and Judd Trump all defeated before Mark Selby in the quarterfinal. Mark Williams in the semi-final down to a decider, and John Higgins in the final, and we beat him 9 frames to 4 to successfully defend our title of Welsh Open champion and win our first ranking event of the season. We then went into the shootout and were shot out in the first round against Hamid Mir. Stuart Bingham went on to win that tournament. We then played the Coral Players Championship. Sean Murphy beat us in the quarterfinals of that 4-1 after beating Kyron Wilson 4-0 in the last 16. Mark Selby went on to win that tournament. We then played the Tour Championship, beat Mark Allen 5-1 in the quarters, lost to Higgins 6-2 in the semis, and after 61 episodes, I thought, I've got to play in the China Open. That's exactly what I did. I played Andrew Higginson and Tom Ford, beat those two, and then lost to Mark Allen in the last 16, 2 frames to 1. Mark Selby defending his China Open tournament there. And then the big one, the World Championship. We beat Graham Dott 10 frames to 4 in the last 32. We then beat Barry Hawkins 13-8. Mark Selby 13-11. Quite a big match, quite a close match. We then beat Kyron Wilson 17-15 and beat Mark Williams 18-15 to win our second Triple Crown event and Ronnie O'Sullivan's 6th world title. It was a fantastic tournament, and it was right towards the end of 2019, round about Christmas time. Lots of people were watching the content around them. And, it was probably the peak in terms of people watching my channel day in, day out. It sort of rejuvenated the series almost. It brought in a lot of new viewers and new consistent viewers. People that hadn't watched for a while had jumped back in at that World Championship. And some of the close matches there, I mean, apart from Barry Hawkins and Graham Dott, they were all by the odd frame. They could have went either way, but we won the World Championship, and that was a big monkey off the back, really. And Mark Williams, could have easily won that match. And I always remember Kyron Wilson was 15-13 up in that match. He could have beat us in that semi-final. But there you go. That's the end of Season 2. And this video has gone on a lot longer than I thought. I really hope you guys are enjoying. If you are, please hit that thumbs up button. This spreadsheet took a long time to make, and it's something that I'm really proud of. I had some help from Toby TIJ as well, and we'll show you what he put together later on. So yeah, that was Season 2, and I mean, by this, I'll show you the Season 2 stats. I mean, you can probably see my enjoyment of the series capitulated a little bit. And I didn't do all of this for that season, which was a bit disappointing. So I don't really have an accurate record of centuries. I guessed about 25, because I'd sort of worked out how many I had in the World Championship, and try to work out exactly where I'd made century breaks that year. So I sort of put a blanket figure of 25. That's not accurate. This one is 100% accurate. That one not so much. So yeah, a little bit disappointed not to have done that spreadsheet a little bit better. But when I've went back and watched over the matches, I've obviously filled in this one a lot better. We then have Season 3, the one that's just passed, which was a fantastic season, really. Really, really enjoyed it. But it started with a defeat to Kyron Wilson. He beat us in the last 16 of the Riga Masters, 4-1. and he was really emerging as a new rival at this point. You know, we'd played him in the semi-final of the World Championship. We then played him in the last 16 of the Riga Masters. Mark Williams won that tournament in the end there. We then played him again in the last 16 of the Yushan World Open. Same result. He beat us 5-3. Mark Williams winning the tournament. So you can see again, I'm falling down that trap of, getting off to a really poor start to the season, and that didn't happen in Season 1. So it was very curious for that to be happening in Season 3 and Season 2. We then played Joe Perry and Ryan Day and Mark Selby and Kyron Wilson again and Mark Allen, and we won the Paul Hunter Classic short format games, 2 deciders in there, one against Ryan Day, one against Kyron Wilson, but we beat Mark Allen 4-0 to win our 6th, 7th ranking tournament, and first one of the season, and that was a big relief to get a W in the bag so early on. We then beat Zhao Guodong 5-0, lost to Michael Georgiou 5-4, and beat Sean O'Sullivan 5-1 in the 6 Red Championship, but didn't go through the group stage. John Higgins won that in the end. We then went into the Shanghai Masters, beat Ding Junhui 6-3, a very good performance there, but lost to Stuart Bingham 6-2, and Mark Williams went on to win that tournament. We then played Matthew Stevens in the first round of the China Championship, beat him 2-1 before losing to Mark King 2-0 in the last 32. And then didn't enter the Indian Open. Mark Selby won China Championship and Indian Open. We then lost 2-1 to Gary Wilson in the last 32 of the European Masters. So even though we've won a tournament this season, this is by far our worst start yet. We went out in the last 16 of both the Riga Masters and the World Open. Went out in the group stage of the 6 Reds, quarter-final of the Shanghai, last 32 of both the China Championship and European Masters. Then the English Open, Graham Dott, we beat him 2-0. We beat Maguire 2-0 at Revenge for last year, and then lost to Mark Allen in a deciding frame of the quarter-final, 5-4. So Mark Selby was the one that won that tournament eventually. We then played Mark Selby in the last 16 of the International Championship. We beat him 6-2. We beat Jack Lazowski 6-5 in a decider. Kyron Wilson 9-5 in the semi-final, another match against our rival, before beating John Higgins 10-8 in the final and winning our 2nd ranking tournament of the season. And again, it was a huge victory, a huge monkey off my back to win that tournament and get back on top and feel like we'd actually achieved something in the season. Then comes around the Champion of Champions. We went out in the quarterfinal 6-3 to John Higgins. Played Kyron Wilson again though, another decider. I mean, Kyron and myself played a lot of times at the start of last season. It was crazy. We then played in the last 64 of the UK Championship, of the Northern Ireland Open. We beat Matthew Stevens 2-0. We then beat Zhao Guodong 2-0, Neil Robertson 4-1, and John Higgins 5-2, and then Mark Selby 6-4, before playing Mark Williams in the final. We went down 9-5. It was our first ever defeat in a final in this series so far, and it was a hurtful one. Mark Williams just played so much better than us in that tournament, and he went on to win the tournament and get revenge for the World Championship final. We then went into the UK Championship, beat Dave Gilbert 6-2 in the last 16, John Higgins 6-0 in the quarter-final, Kyron Wilson again 6-3 in the UK Championship semi-final, before our defeat to Mark Selby 10-5 in the final. Another hurtful defeat. We were 2-0 up in that match. It looked like we were going for another comfortable victory over Mark Selby, but he had other ideas and beat us 10-5, so we couldn't hold all 3 Triple Crown events at the same time. And it means we still haven't won the UK Championship, basically. And this started a mini decline in form. Scottish Open, we got to the quarter-final against John Higgins, went down 5-3. Kyron Wilson, funnily enough, went on to win that tournament. And then we went to the Daft Bet Masters. We beat Kyron Wilson 2-0, and then went down 6-5 to Jack Lazowski in a decider. It was on Master Plus that I played that match. It was around the time of the Virtual World Championship, and I was 4-1 up in that and just completely lost my way. And Jack Lazowski went on to win that match, and Mark Selby went on to win the tournament, and we lost our crown. We lost our Daft Bet Masters crown, and the season started to go kaput. We lost in the qualifier to John Astley 2-1 of the German Masters. Mark Selby went on to win that. We then lost 4-0 in the first round of the World Grand Prix to Ali Carter, 4-0. Mark Williams won that. We then lost in the last 128 to Simon Lichtenberg, 2-1. In the Welsh Open, the tournament we'd won 2 years in a row, and Barry Hawkins actually went on to win that one. Don't really know why that's not on there, but let's get it in there. Barry Hawkins won the Welsh Open. Then the shootout, you can see we got the last 16, return to form of sorts, I suppose. Jordan Brown, Liam Highfield and Ali Carter. We beat there on the way to John Higgins, a big defeat in the last 16, and he went on to win the tournament. We then played the Players' Championship. Mark Selby won that tournament. We lost to Mark Williams 4-3 in a decider in the first round of that one. Then the Tour Championship beat Mark Selby 5-3, Neil Robertson 6-5, with the 3-miss rule coming in there. Neil Robertson lost the deciding frame on the 3-miss rule, and we beat Mark Williams 9-2 in the final. And it was crazy. People were saying, oh, you need to move up the difficulty. Look at this performance over the last few tournaments before this match, where I beat Mark Williams 9-2. Big woo. We then went into the China Open, beat Robbie Williams 2-0 and Tom Ford 2-1, then lost to Sean Murphy 2-1, a player we've never beaten in the series so far. Shout out to Toby in the corner, he's playing Starters Orders, horse racing game. Mark Selby won the China Open for the 3rd consecutive year, and he's got a real stranglehold on that tournament. Then we had the most recent tournament, the World Championship. We beat Liang Wenbo 10-1, Mark Williams 13-7, Judd Trump 13-3, Neil Robertson 17-16, and Mark Selby by 18 frames to 6 to win our second world title in a row, our 7th world title for Ronnie O'Sullivan, and cap off a really positive season where we actually won 4 ranking events, but it was so up and down. You know, if you look at that season on the whole, if we go into season 3 here, I need to add in Barry Hawkins onto this as well. I don't know why he wasn't on there, but he did win the Welsh Open, which was a huge surprise to me at the time. But there you go, season 3. I suppose that was last 16 versus Murphy, so this is all I do really, is put that information in, and you can see the season on the whole. We got 38 centuries in the end. 147 was our top break in the World Championship against Liang Wenbo, so there you go. That's it. That's the series so far, and I just want to show you one more thing. The tournament winners list. Now, you can see Barry Hawkins has won a tournament there. You can see Ronnie, we're third on the list of winners. This is something Toby put together for me, and you can see the amount of rank and money that people have won throughout the series. But the insane stat is that Mark Selby has won 20 ranking events. He has completely dominated, really. But Mark Williams has done well as well. He's got 14, and we've got 11. Judd Trump's got 6, which is pretty decent. Most of them were in the first season, I think. He hasn't done a great deal since. John Higgins has won 5 of them. Kyron Wilson's won 2 of them. Barry Hawkins and Stu Bingham have also won ranked events. But notable absentees are the likes of Stephen Maguire. Neil Robertson is the main one that you think of there. Sean Murphy hasn't won anything on my game. And there's just some some crazy results in there, really, and I think it's absolutely fantastic to have a look at this and see the patterns in tournaments. You can see Mark Selby's got an absolute stranglehold on the China Open. He's won 2 out of 3 English Opens, and it's just insane, really, what can happen in a save. So yeah, that was just a brief history of the save, if you like. That's the wrong photo. There we go. We've got this one now. A brief history of the save to sort of bring everyone up to speed of the first 250 odd episodes of this career mode. And a lot of people have asked, when will I end this career mode? And honestly, it will be when the next snooker game comes out. I don't see myself ever stopping this series. I absolutely love snooker. It's my passion, and to have a video game where I can play unlimited seasons and have these big rivalries against Kyron Wilson, against Mark Selby, John Higgins, Mark Williams, it's amazing. And I really haven't missed Create a Pro in this. I've loved representing Ronnie. I think we've got very similar play styles, in game, and the way I would play as my own character. So it makes sense, and it's realistic to win tournaments as Ronnie. So that's just a brief history, as I say. And if you have enjoyed it, it's a much longer video than I ever thought it would be. But if you have enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like down below. It really does help me out. It means the world to me as well. Subscribe to the channel for daily Snooker 19 videos, and I'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow for Season 4, Episode 1 in the Riga Masters. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.